Hello, our topic is fixed stars, and we're going to look at some different issues with fixed stars, different things that could be going on with fixed stars, and if you were going to research fixed stars, things that you need to consider. In other words, different perspectives, different possibilities, different ways that fixed stars may be working. I've made some other videos about some of the ideas. I'm going to introduce a few additional ideas, a few new perspectives on it, and also show you some research features for how we can figure out how fixed stars work in the astrology chart. By the way, just for fun, before we get going here, I call this considerations. Well, if we look at the previous slide, considerations for research. Did you know that the word consideration is made from the terms con, which means with, and sider, which means star? So here from this website, the last line is perhaps this word consideration, which combines together the con, which means with together, and sidereus, heavenly body star constellation, perhaps a metaphor from navigation, but more likely reflecting Roman obsession with divination by astrology. Okay, anyway, it's a fun word if you weren't aware of that. Consideration probably evolved from astrology. Okay, well, that was just a fun aside. Let's get into fixed stars. So as you know, fixed stars have been used in astrology for thousands of years, and a common use of them in modern times, and also was common in ancient times, is to consider a planet that's conjunct a fixed star within a 1-degree orb as being very important. So this is, I think, the most common thing done is to look at a star conjunct a planet within a 1-degree orb, and the idea is that that star gives this energetic boost to the planet, gives it an extra power. And let's look at this idea. So if we look at the chart of Steve Jobs, so here's his birth chart, and there's a number of different things we can do. One is we can go to listing and go to the fixed stars listing, which is here, fixed stars, listings and interpretation. And number 2 is a nice one to use for general use in astrology. There's also the detailed interpretation of fixed stars. That's a lot of fun. But first, let's look at this listing number 2 in this list. And it shows us what planets are conjunct to fixed stars. So, for example, over here, Moon. I'll highlight this one. Moon is conjunct a star called Algonib, which is Gamma Pegasus, so it's in the constellation Pegasus, with a 48-minute orb. This is the normal orb. So here we have the typical thing done in astrology, and right now this is set to a 1-degree orb. So this is the common thing. As a little bit of interest, it's also showing direct distance. Now I'm going to show you what this direct distance is, but it's one of the things to consider. So notice that some of these planets conjunct fixed stars are also close in direct distance. Again, don't worry about what direct distance is. I'll explain it in a minute. Like, look at this one, True Node conjunct Pallas, which is Mu Sagittarius with a 49-minute orb. The direct distance happens to be very small, about 2.5 degrees. In other cases, look at this one, Venus conjunct a star called Sulafat, which is Gamma Lyra, with only an 8-minute orb, but it's 53 degrees. So in direct distance. So sometimes the direct distance is huge, sometimes it's small. That's an issue. We'll talk more about what direct distance is. Another thing you can do, by the way, to visualize this a little bit, is you can right-click on the wheel and select a fixed star wheel, which is this one under the More section. And it's nice. It shows you the planets in the inner ring, and then you can see the stars in the outer ring. One thing with the fixed stars wheel is you can only put so many stars in a wheel, and you can't fit anymore. When the listing, it's unlimited. But anyway, it's kind of cool. You can just see what's going on. And here is a listing to these major stars. So we see Jupiter conjunct Castor with a 53-minute orb. If we go back to our listing, we should see the same thing. Jupiter conjunct Castor, there it is with the 53-minute orb, and the additional information about the direct distance. Okay, so that's the usual thing that's done with fixed stars, is looking at conjunctions with a 1-degree orb. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. How can we confirm these ideas, and how do we determine what fixed stars do? So that's one of the things we want to do. And in modern research methods, we first identify different issues that are involved. So let's look at these issues. So in modern research methods and modern thinking, we don't just assume that the ancient ideas are correct or our usual way of approaching it. We first question everything. What are the possibilities? What's going on? What do fixed stars look like in the sky? What kinds of ways can we look at this? So number one, we do use ancient astrological ideas as important possible clues, but we do not assume that they are correct. You know, when I say that, that probably sounds reasonable, but how often in astrology do we just jump in with the ideas we've been told about and that we've inherited, and we just start testing them? So first, let's look at this whole issue of fixed stars and consider what our options are. Number two, pretty obvious, but it's good to take a step back before we jump in. Think about this. Fixed stars are very different from planets. Most of them are not near the ecliptic plane. And that's what this direct distance has to do with. The fact that the fixed stars are not close to the ecliptic plane. And here's a few of the stars that we just looked at in that listing, and showing you how the direct distance is different from the orb as we usually do it in astrology. I'm going to show you this with a visual right now. So let's look at Mercury conjunct Alnair. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Mercury conjunct Alnair, which is here, and it's got a 55-minute orb just within the 1 degree, but the direct distance is 35 degrees 2 minutes. Let's look at what's going on. Here's what's going on, and this is an image of what the sky looks like. To get this image in the Kepler or Sirius programs, what you do is let me just bring up the normal kind of wheel for Steve Jobs. While I'm here, I can go to Map, and right here, Maps, and then I can go to Sky Map. And it brings up the Sky Map feature, and there's a lot of different ways to look at the maps. You can use a rectangular or circular sky, and you can decide which great circle, the ecliptic plane, the equatorial plane, or the horizon is the reference. Here we've got rectangle and ecliptic selected, so this map is rectangular. And the green line here tells us that ecliptic is green, goes down the middle. So this is giving us a visualization of the sky relative to the ecliptic plane. Like you're looking at the sky and focusing on the ecliptic plane as where your eye is looking. Like we're looking through the sky around the ecliptic plane, and all of the planets are near the ecliptic plane. Here's the moon over here, a little bit above the ecliptic plane. Mars just about exactly on the ecliptic plane. Over here is Jupiter and Uranus. They're overlapping, so you can't really read Uranus very clearly. It's in like a pinkish purplish color. Jupiter and Uranus very, very close to the ecliptic plane. Pluto can get a little bit farther away from the ecliptic plane. There it is in yellow, and so on. You know, they're the planets. Over here is the sun. By definition, this sun is always on the ecliptic plane, and it's yellow. And what I want to focus on here is Mercury over here, just slightly above the ecliptic plane. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. So before I go back to PowerPoint, let me finish this point. Planets are always near the ecliptic plane. Of course, stars are everywhere. There are some stars near the ecliptic plane. Here's Spica, here's Arcturus. You know, other ones. Here's Regulus, which is a bright star almost exactly on the ecliptic plane. Most of them, of course, are not near the ecliptic plane. They're just spread out throughout the sky. And direct distance means you're going to measure directly from one celestial object to another. So if I want to do direct distance of the sun, this yellow thing on the right side, right on the ecliptic plane, to, say, Fomalhaut, which is over here, Fomalhaut, I would measure directly between them. Direct distance means you measure directly between them. In astronomy, we call that in its own great circle. You don't have to worry about the technical terminology, but we can measure what the actual distance is. But what we usually do in astrology is we project the planets onto the ecliptic plane. And so we're not actually looking at the actual distance. And I've got some screen captures here in our PowerPoint to illustrate this. So here's the same screen that we were just looking at, and I've put some green circles around the planet so you can see them all. So there they are, got green circles, and there's Alnair. And I put a red circle, red elliptical shape around Alnair. Now let's go back to our listing. Remember, in our listing, it said that Mercury's conjunct Alnair with a 55-minute orb, but the direct distance is 35 degrees. Well, if you might say, make believe Alnair is on the ecliptic plane, projected on the ecliptic plane, you can see it's almost exactly where Mercury is. So, and it's 55 minutes, almost 1 degree. If I take Alnair, which is in this red ellipse, and I go vertically, straight up to the ecliptic plane, it's almost exactly where Mercury is. That's why it has a 1 degree orb, but actually they're nowhere near each other. So it's a little bit illusory when we say that Mercury's conjunct Alnair with a 1 degree orb. You might get the impression, oh, at 1 degree, they're really close to each other. In the sky, they're nowhere near each other. And this happens to be 35 degrees if I measure directly from Mercury to Alnair. Now, here are 3 stars. On the left, I'm showing you 3 stars that are very close to the ecliptic plane: Regulus, Spica, and Arcturus. They're bright stars that happen to be near the ecliptic plane. So there are a few bright stars very close to the ecliptic plane. And these are stars that the planets could be very, very close to. In direct distance, they could become very close to them. So these are some things to be aware of. So one question that arises is, does it matter that the star is actually not very close? Does it matter that Mercury's conjunct Alnair, but it's nowhere near Alnair? Whereas if a planet is conjunct Regulus, it would be close to it. Does it make a difference? Well, the idea in research is we don't know. Let's find out. Rather than assume that we know, let's see if we know. And by the way, notice this, Neptune. This light blue thing is Neptune, and that star is Spica. Notice that Neptune is very close to Spica. Very close, but it's more than a 1 degree orb. And therefore, as astrologers, we do not say that there's a Neptune-Spica connection. If we use a 1 degree orb, it's not there. But we do say there's a Mercury-Alnair. It looks a little, you might say, unfair. Like, whoa, Neptune's not with Spica, but Mercury is with Alnair? Yes, that's what we're saying. I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong. What I'm saying is that from a research perspective, maybe it makes a difference. Maybe Neptune really is with Spica. Maybe Mercury's really not with Alnair. Maybe we need to look at whether they're really close to each other. Or maybe projected positions do work. We don't really know. And this is what we can find out with the huge databases, the software that we have in the 21st century, things that in ancient times they could only dream, it would sound like magic. We now have, we can explore, and we can find out. Okay. So our second consideration, going back here, is that fixed stars are different from planets. And, I mean, physically they're different. They're very far away. They're actually suns. They're stars. as opposed to the planets. And third consideration is that they may operate in a different way from planets. Well, that's the point I was getting to. They're outside our solar system. And maybe they give a potential for extraordinary capabilities. Maybe they give an extraordinary potential. This is what some astrologers say, that if you have a planet conjunct a fixed star, it's like a superpower. So fixed stars may be keys to our superpowers that sometimes remain hidden. Whoa, wouldn't that be cool? And that is what some astrologers say. And now we want to know, should we do it in direct distance? Is it okay to project the star onto the ecliptic plane? These are things we want to look at. Okay, number 4, because fixed stars are very different from planets, it is possible that their astrological significance is derived in a different way. You know, planets have their own meanings. Each planet has meaning. Mercury relates and connects things. Venus is related to attraction to beauty. Mars has to do with getting things done. Jupiter to expanding things. They all have a purpose and a function. We have assumed that stars work the same way in general in astrology. Like Regulus is the king and it's regal, that they all have a particular effect. But think about it, the stars being of such a different nature, maybe they work differently. And just speculating, one speculation that we have in VA is we have a theory that the tropical zodiac is a structure in space, and space in physics is a kind of thing in which objects exist. So if we think about this and what the theory of astrology is, I've made entire videos about this. Sounds rather abstract and weird, but based on ideas in physics, there's this idea of space, and the tropical zodiac defines a structure in space. And note that fixed stars move direct through the tropical zodiac about 1 degree every year. So if you have a newborn baby, just born today, and you have somebody that's 72 years old, will Regulus, will Arcturus, will Spica, will these fixed stars be in the same position in the tropical zodiac? For grandma who's 72 years old and her newborn grandchild today, is it the same? No. The grandchild's fixed stars, Regulus, Arcturus, Canopus, all of them have moved forward in the zodiac about 1 degree. In fact, the fixed star Regulus, one of the brightest stars in the sky, and it's right close, very close to the ecliptic plane. So Regulus is a kind of special star because it's so bright and so close to the ecliptic plane. It just entered Virgo a few years ago. So in a little over 2,000 years, a star will move into a new sign. Well, one possibility is maybe space defines the star. Instead of the way planets work, where each planet has its own meaning, maybe it's the space. So maybe the whole meaning of Regulus has changed because it's in Virgo. It's a possibility. So in vibrational astrology, we doubt everything. We question everything. We open our minds to all kinds of possibilities rather than assume that the ancient knowledge is necessarily correct. So for some astrologers, saying that Regulus has gone from being Leo to Virgo and its whole meaning has changed dramatically might sound ridiculous, but I think it sounds ridiculous only because we're accustomed to thinking a certain way. We want to be open to all possibilities. So here's how we do the research. You can go in to the Astrosignature feature. I'll show you how I selected this, but first let's look at this feature that I've captured the screen of. We go into the Astrosignature feature and we select fixed star, right over here on the right side, fixed star. And then we select the planet Mercury, and then we select the fixed stars. And what I did is I unchecked everything except, I think I unchecked everything except Regulus, if I remember right. Yeah, I unchecked everything except Regulus. And let's see, we can select this direct distance option for it. So let's see, I think that's a feature that was added more recently. And you can also go in and customize the astro signature to add that feature. So if I go into the astro signature feature and I select astro signature, I go down and I've created this fixed star astro signature. You just create it by selecting new search, and you go in there and you let me go in and view it. And we added this new feature very, very recently to select direct distance. So there it is. And when you select it, you get a message that this is not usually used by astrologers. So that's a very cool new feature, that you can select direct distance. And what we did is we selected Mercury, Venus, or Mars, put 3 lines in here, and we can do it. We can see if a planet is a conjunct, a fixed star, within whatever orb we want in direct distance. And here we've got a 1-degree orb selected. And if you have an older version of software that doesn't have this direct distance option, you can actually go in and customize the astro signature. So let me just cancel out of this and go back to the PowerPoint, which is here. And this shows you that there's a file where that astro signature is saved. This is a little more advanced, but it's actually not that difficult. If I go into this customize, down here in the lower right corner, it tells me that this astro signature for fixed stars is in a file rncy.def. And there are features that are not always in the user interface. So we can go in, and this little D in each one of these lines means do it in direct distance. So your choices are saved in a text file that you can open up with Notepad or any other text editor, and you can customize it directly instead of using the user interface. Anyway, this D in here does the direct distance. And when we run this for astrologers, this is what we obtain. This is the fun part. An astrologer by the name of Florian Freistetter has Regulus conjunct some of these planets, Mercury, Venus, or Mars, that I selected very tightly, and they get 27 points. So I gave 50 points to each one, and there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 astrologers who have Regulus right on a star. And when I run it, excuse me, for all 1,084 astrologers in the database, this is the list. The first time I ran it, I stopped it after about 200, and only astrologer 4625 showed up. But if you run all 1,000, that's the list. And in the software, you can view, so when you go into the astro signature, and I select astrologers, and I click on begin analysis. So I'm in here with fixed stars selected, and I just click begin analysis. This has accuracy A. Let me click on accuracy, change this to all charts, because I notice here in my PowerPoint, I have people with C accuracy and so on. So I will run it for everyone, and I will get that list. You just click on begin analysis, and you see it takes a little while to run. And if I let it run all the way through, it'll go up to 1,000, and then it will stop. And you'll see those 6 astrologers who have a planet right on Regulus. This is so exciting. I'm going to stop this now just by clicking on stop processing. And we see here, let me drag this down into your part of my screen where I'm capturing for this video. Pull both of these over here. You see here it is, astrologer 4625 gets 8 points. If I click on that name, I can see the details. Let me drag this a little further over. So what this is telling me is that this astrologer, who we don't have a name for, they were just in a database without names, has Regulus conjunct Venus with an orb of 50 minutes. So there it is. And if I ran it all the way through, I would see all of these. But you see astrologer 4625, orb 50 minutes. Okay. Now, if we call up this chart, and by the way, let me show you this cool feature, is I can click on this name, add it to the list of chart entries in the main screen, click OK. So when you click on the name, you get some different options. And I click an option to save it, and then when I go back, it adds it to my list of charts. So now it added Astrologer 4625, and I can now go to listing and select fixed stars listing number 2. Same thing I selected for Steve Jobs. And if I go down to Venus, it tells me, there it is. It confirms it, that Venus is conjunct Regulus. Regulus is Alpha Leo, is another name for Regulus, with a 35-minute orb, and the direct distance is 50 minutes. Because I did it in direct distance, it's found that Venus is right on Regulus. I can now go to maps and actually see this. So I can go to maps and go to sky map, and I can visually see it. It's right, what is this? Venus on Regulus. It's right there. Right there. This blue little circle is Venus, and there's Regulus. They're right on top of each other. I don't know if you can read that or not, but it's showing Regulus and Venus are right on top of each other. And we know by going back to our listing that the orb, going back to this, that it's within 50 minutes direct distance. Only 35 minutes in the usual way we do it in astrology. This is fantastic for research because now we can pull up the charts of people who have a planet sitting right on the fixed star. And let me show you this. If, when this astrologer was born, Venus, instead of being very close to the ecliptic plane, was very far down, if it had a larger latitude, farther from the ecliptic plane, because it'll vary, it would not be right on Regulus. So this is a very unusual circumstance where a planet is conjunct a fixed star and it has a similar latitude. It's up or down in the same direction as the star, and it ends up being almost right on top of it. If it's right on top of it, you know, it would be an occultation. It's exactly like, so these are near occultations. Planet right on the star. You can't get any stronger than that. So what's beautiful about researching these people who have a planet conjunct in both longitude and latitude means the direct distance is very small. That has to be strong. You want to get people where there's no doubt that that star is strong for them. This person is a huge Venus Regulus. So if Regulus means regal or something, the Venusian qualities should be very regal. Maybe they wear a lot of gold jewelry or something like that. So it's fascinating. We can pick out the people that are clearly have that star conspicuous without any doubt. Doesn't matter whether we think we should use direct distance or not, and whether we do or not, the planet is tightly conjunct the star. These are the kinds of things that are important for research, so you have no doubt that these are really strong fixed star people, strong Regulus persons, specifically for Venus in this case. Now, so I just showed you this for Astrologer 4625. We just looked at this listing. I've just captured it here, a screen capture. Venus on Regulus, there's the 35-minute orb, and a 50-minute orb is the direct distance. And here is Florian Freistetter. Remember that Florian Freistetter is the astrologer who had the strongest number of points with Mercury conjunct Regulus, with a 26-minute orb and only 28 minutes direct distance. Why is the direct distance only slightly larger than the orb using latitude? using normal zodiac longitude? It's because the latitude of Regulus is almost identical to the latitude of Mercury. So if we look at Florian Freistetter, if we look at the chart wheel, we will see that Mercury's at 29 Leo 58. Regulus in the star catalog is 29 Leo 31. 29 Leo 58 minus 29 Leo 31 is 27 minutes. That you can get a 1 minute rounding error. It's actually 26-minute orb. The latitude of Mercury is 09 north 18. The latitude of Regulus for this person is 0 north 28. In other words, it's only a 10-minute difference in latitude. And for those of you who want to get really nerdy about this, you would use spherical trigonometry to calculate the direct distance. You can get a quick approximation using the plane geometry Pythagorean theorem, where a squared plus b squared equals c squared. If you're familiar with these things, and you would confirm that it's 28 minutes. And I show the calculation. You can halt, you can pause this and see. What I'm telling you, I'm just going through this very quickly. I'm just telling you that you can confirm what's going on. And I'll show you how you can see all these things. Is if I pull up a Florian Freistetter, let's go into the data entry screen. There is this person, and I click on done. I can see that Mercury is at 29 Leo 58. There it is, 29 Leo 58. If I go to listings, planet or asteroids positions list, and I select planet positions list, it will tell me that there's Mercury, 29 Leo 57 minutes 34 seconds, rounds off to 29 Leo 58, and the latitude is 0 north 18. That's one way to see the latitude. You can also see it in different chart wheels. That's one way to see it. You can also do something like right click, select a wheel with a lot of tables, and right here it tells me that Venus has Mercury, I keep saying Venus, Mercury has a latitude of 0 north 18. I can also go to the, what do I want to go to? I want to go to the ephemeris and look at click on ephemeris and go to the star catalog. And if I select the top one, simple flexible listing, I can pull up, let's see if I right click on this, for the star catalog, you want current entry. You have an option for any date or current entry. I select current entry, and it shows me Florian Freistetter. I can type Regulus here, and it shows me Regulus and all the details about the position of Regulus for this person. And I can see the latitude and longitude and all those details. Okay, so there it is. We have that information that I'm showing in the slide here. I'm showing you a lot of technical information for those of you who are interested in it, but my point is this: you don't need to get involved in all that. You can go into the research and see who has a star right on a planet with a small orb. So, and here's the math that confirms that the direct distance between Venus and Regulus for this person called Astrologer 4625 is in fact 50 minutes. And for those of you who are just curious about the math, it's worked out here. And this is what it looks like for, let's see, this is the Venus Regulus. This is for Astrologer 4625. We've zoomed in a little bit here on the map so you can see it more clearly. Look at Venus and Regulus. Wow. Venus is this light blue circle, and the dot of Regulus is covered by Venus. They're so close to each other. How close are they? They are 50 minutes a little less than 1 degree. So very cool that you can find these things, and then you can read their biographies and so on and see if it makes sense. So in a first research project on fixed stars, we want to see if there's any usefulness to fixed stars. Do they make any sense? And by analyzing these near occultations, when a planet is right on the fixed star, using this direct distance feature, there's no doubt that these are people who have a very, very strong fixed star with the connected to a specific planet. Let's see here. Let me read this whole second paragraph. By analyzing these near occultations, that is, when a planet and fixed star are very close to being at the same point in the sky, we remove issues of whether the zodiac longitude positions work well with fixed stars, or if we should use direct distance should be used, or whether we should use the time that the star rises, sets, or culminates, or anti-culminates. This is another idea that's often used and gets involved with more astronomical details, what we call in mundo. I cover all this in different tutorial videos on astronomy. We don't need to get into all that, but what I'm saying is that no matter how you look at fixed stars, whether you think we should do it in mundo, or we should do it direct distance, or we should do it in longitude, because the fixed star and the planet are in the same point in the sky, it's going to be the same, very, very close, no matter what approach you use. So this eliminates it just to see if the fixed star means anything at all. Then in future research, you can compare longitude versus direct distance versus in mundo to see which of those is working best. But first, we want to solve one thing at a time in research. If you have too many issues going on in your research, you're not sure which one is involved. Let's first see if there's any consistency to the star at all. So I hope you can follow that. This is how we do real research to make breakthrough discoveries, is we make a very, very simple design that removes all these different possibilities to just see, is Regulus doing anything? Find all the people who have Venus right on top of Regulus. With the smallest dwarf, we can run all the people with AA data, over 20,000. See who has it the tightest within probably minutes. Like Venus is right in the same spot of the sky as Regulus, or study other planets and read their biographies and see if it makes sense. So it's very exciting. This is the first step for how we do research. Simplify, remove all these issues of how we're measuring what might be most important, and just see by using near occultations if the star has any effect. And if we cannot find a consistent theme for a fixed star that's at the same degree, now here's another issue. If one person is, say, 72 years older than another person, that conjunction's happening at a different degree of the zodiac. So what you really want to do to eliminate all possibilities is take people of about the same age, say within about 10 years of each other. I mean, they don't have to be like extremely close, but say within about 10 years, and that conjunction, that planet, and the fixed star are both in the same degree, say 29 degrees of Leo for Regulus. Or if it's going back into the early 1900s, it might be at 28 Leo. In the future, Regulus just moved into Virgo, it will be in Virgo. So what we want to do is take people who are within, say, 10, 20, 30 years of each other. Regulus and the planet are in the same degree, say 29 Leo for both people, or suppose I'm studying 6 people with a Venus Regulus near occultation, and they're all at 29 Leo. It's extremely similar. The more similar the people are, the more issues you've removed. If the people are not the same, even though it's in 29 Leo, even though it's exact direct distance, or in zodiac longitude, or in mundo, and we don't find anything clear, then we conclude that there's no evidence from the data to support this idea of fixed stars. If we see something reasonably similar, we have support for it. So this is the power of modern tools We're in a 21st century. This is called 21st century evidence-based astrology. It's a whole new world. And if you understand some of the astronomical issues, some of the historical issues, some of the different possibilities, then you can develop a design to sort this out and figure it out in the best possible way. So, you know, the combination of knowing that the software and the databases are available, how to use them, and what the different options and possibilities are, opens the door to breakthrough discoveries. So this is how I would approach a research on fixed stars. I would look for near occultations in the same degree of the zodiac. And that's how I would do it. I would run it against the entire database and then read their biographies and see if we can get some consistent results. Okay, that's the end of my slides. Actually, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. I don't see it here, which is you can look at transits to that degree. So these people have, say, Venus conjunct Regulus, near occultations. I mean, I can't wait to do this research. We have, you know, some people on our research team. We're going to be doing this research this year, present the results in the 2023 Vibrational Astrology Conference. You know, we're going to be doing this research. I think Starlene Brighter will probably be one of the people involved in this research. I can't wait to see what she comes up with, because I'm so curious to see if do people with Venus conjunct Regulus in the same degree, whether it's 28 to 29 Leo or 29 to 30 Leo, do they exhibit qualities that clearly relate to this? And you can look at transits to it. Let's say you look at the time when an outer planet, Uranus, Neptune, or Pluto, is conjunct that Venus. It's also conjunct Regulus. What if by solar arc or secondary progression, you get a big hit, like suppose solar arc Jupiter is conjunct Venus? You can look at that time, go into their biography, and not only is it a Venus-Jupiter, but the Regulus would be involved. Maybe that would help them, like, be involved in gold or jewelry or investments or some quality that incorporates the quality of the star. This is so exciting to do this kind of data-driven research instead of whatever charts we happen to see, and you have selection bias and all these problems. So it's going to be an exciting year of research this coming year. This is one of the things we're looking into. I wanted to make this video not only for the researchers engaged in this, but for everyone to understand and appreciate how we do the research and the issues we look at, and how we don't take anything for granted and get to the core and underlying foundations so that we can be clear about it. This is really a revolution for astrology, to sort these things out and build them up piece by piece using the fabulous tools that we have in the 21st century that never existed before. Okay, that's it, my friends. I hope you found that interesting. Like I said, big thing for me is I can't wait to see what the results are. And this is a first step in organizing our thoughts. Everybody has their own guess, but just for fun, my guess is that it's going to work. I think we're going to see something very consistent and very much along the lines of what astrologers have said, at least when Regulus was still in Leo, which it will be for the people studying in this database, because Regulus just went into Virgo a few years ago. And I think it's going to be clear. We'll see. I could be completely wrong, you know. This is the fun. Okay, we'll find out. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.